And lead play-by-play commentator Cameron Irvine. Tonight, I am with Atlanta quarterback Marcus Dunhill. Marcus, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, Cam.
Now, is Marcus a pseudo name, or are you actually Marcus Dunhill in real life?
It is a pseudonym.
Okay, okay. It's funny because some people, everybody uses the SFL as a different outlet, or a different means to kind of change the universe they currently live in, and some people use their real names, and some people use different names. So it's funny to just kind of see the differences among people. Well, Marcus, how did you discover the Simulation Football League?
So I was just happened to be very bored one day and browsing Reddit. I think it was NFL draft Reddit around the time of the draft, or just after the draft. It was right before we did the season 10 championship game. It was the day before, so 23rd, 24th of April or so, and somebody just happened to post on the NFL draft Reddit about the Simulation Football League, and I ended up following a link to the Discord, which dropped me into the Discord without knowing much about it, and it was quite the learning experience spending the day learning all about the league.
So the veterans and even myself may not know really what you went through when you got into the league because you got to be a part of the league's most successful draft in league history, and I'm sure that you had a lot of conversations and a lot of um, different options and things you might have wanted to do. You ended up getting drafted by Atlanta as a quarterback. What was the process like talking with all of these different teams, or did you find or feel like you found a home pretty quick?
I did definitely didn't find a home pretty quick, but I did get to spend a lot of time talking to a lot of great people. The first part was getting the introduction to the league, learning how it works and learning what it was, and after that, figuring out what this draft process was going to be, knowing that I had about 6 weeks until the draft at the time that I joined. And I knew we had to reach out to teams, so I was looking in the player openings every single day and messaging those teams. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I know I kind of wanted to be a quarterback, but I knew that's a very hard to get position and saw that position, hard for rookies to come by. And I took the opportunity in the draft to start to get to know owners and GMs. I think I took it a little bit further than most people did because once you got up in that chat ranking during the draft, you kind of got to this point where you were people expected you to be one of this top 10, top 15 draft pick. Where talking to some of these late round teams didn't really make sense, so there was a lot of people who didn't make these conversations with those owners. I made it a point to talk to every single owner of every single team before the draft because whether they drafted me or not, I wanted to get to know the people in the league that I was working with.
So, what were your conversations like with Atlanta? Did you talk a lot before you were drafted, and then what was just kind of that experience of, oh my gosh, I'm going to be the quarterback of the Atlanta Swarm?
It was a crazy, crazy experience because I was in talks with some other teams. Houston was looking for a quarterback, so they were interested. There were a couple other teams that were interested, and I definitely knew that I was looking for quarterback, and I knew Atlanta picked at 10, and at the time, most people kind of had me mocked maybe around 10, but there were some teams with some higher picks that were interested in me. So we kind of had this great conversation where Atlanta said it would be awesome if you fell to us in the draft, and I said it would be awesome if I fell to you in the draft. But we both sides were pretty realistic and didn't think it was going to happen. There were some talks about other teams looking to maybe trade up, so we thought maybe I would be a part of that, as well as some other teams picking at the top 10 who were interested in me. And as it turned out, one of the places I think that I might have ended up was with Andy Hamilton in Vancouver. And what ended up happening during the draft was Cody Hill, who was expected to be one of the top people drafted, ended up following all the way down to 9. And then Andy ended up having to decide between drafting me or Cody, and he ended up drafting Cody, which let me fall to Atlanta at 10.
It's funny how things work out, right? It's just kind of amazing. What is Atlanta's locker room and Mark Chisholm and that organization like? Obviously, they're at the time of this interview, a couple of close home nail-biting losses, but did get the victory in Week 1 on the road in Chicago. Very unusual to see a team in the standings undefeated on the road and winless at home here early.
The locker room is actually really great. Mark's been incredible the entire time, helping me through, the player building process and kind of finding a path for what we want to do, as well as the rest of the players. Some of our locker room is more active than others. All the players show up for their progression, which is great. People show up on game day, but some people are busier than others. But Mark is always available, always there, saying good morning to the team every day, starting conversations, making sure everybody's good, and just being there for every member of the team, which is absolutely fantastic.
I do
We had a
notice that.
great
Oh, go ahead, Marcus. Sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to say we had a great game against Chicago. We had a very close game against Tallahassee where we were leading for parts of the game, but Tallahassee pulled away in the fourth quarter after they threw a couple interceptions. And then we had a bit of a rough patch against Houston. Our owner was on vacation, so we didn't have as much time to work on playbooks and do some behind the scenes things. But, being 1-2 is not the end of the year for us, so we're looking to bounce back.
The the pressure of being a quarterback. Do you feel that? I know it's not real football. I know that you've always wanted to play football and couldn't, and we'll get to that more in a little bit. But does it feel real to you, Marcus?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You can't go into a game and not feel how real it is, especially for the quarterbacks, because usually, sometimes but not always, the game going good or bad is directly in your hands, and it usually goes good or bad depending on what you do. In the Chicago game, the rest of my team played extremely well. I didn't play as good, and Chicago started to come back a little bit on the end because I threw a couple interceptions and made some bad plays, and I really felt bad after that game that everybody in our team did so well and I didn't. And then in Tallahassee we had the lead and then I threw those interceptions and we lost the game. So then again I felt like, my player let us down in that situation. So absolutely every single time I'm on that field, my player's on that field, if my player does not do well, I feel like I let our team down.
Did you happen to catch Matt Wilson's Hall of Fame speech?
I did not, unfortunately. I was busy the entire day for a motorcycle ride fundraiser for a camp that I volunteer at. So I knew I couldn't do that. That was my conflict, being unable to go to the convention this year. So I was not able
Right.
to catch any of the live games or any of that stuff. I should go back and rewatch that, but I've just been so busy with work. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to.
Yeah, I think it is on demand. I'll have to double check. The reason why I ask is because he's the first quarterback to go into the SFL Hall of Fame along with Rocco Marconi, but the first user player quarterback to go in the Hall of Fame. Um, is there a thought or a wantingness, a willingness to want to be kind of that next Matt Wilson as a rookie quarterback? Is he a guy that you love to watch in the league? Is there another quarterback that you just really love watching play?
You know, that's definitely something that's on my thought processes, becoming that great SFL player, maybe someday reaching those heights of Hall of Fame, but you never know. But it's so early in your rookie career, especially when you've only been in 3 games, that you really, really need to focus on what you have ahead of you, who you're playing next. But I love watching a lot of the quarterbacks in the league. Tom Pepper is having an amazing season this year after getting sacked a couple times down in Vancouver. The first game that I ever watched in the SFL
Did you just say
was
sacked a couple of times
a
in
couple
Vancouver?
times, maybe like 81, I don't know.
That's brilliant.
So, um, the first game that I ever watched was the season 10 championship between Alaska and Tallahassee. So the first two quarterbacks that I was introduced to was Christian Christensen and Ron Cochran. So those are two quarterbacks that I watch very closely because, they were my introduction to this league. And they are the two quarterbacks, that day to day I watch the most. But I also love to see how my fellow rookie quarterbacks are doing. But there's so much action, it's so hard to keep up with everything.
That's why we have the SFL Blitz, right?
Oh, of course.
Too many teams to count these days. Before we move any further, how old are you? Where do you call home? And what type of job do you have?
Sure. So I'm 26 years old. I live up in Wisconsin, in Appleton, which is up by Green Bay, about a half hour from Green Bay.
Go Packers.
And I work for a fire protection contractor, and I'm our inspection coordinator. So I schedule fire sprinkler inspections to make sure that our company goes out and inspects businesses that have fire sprinklers to make sure that they're going to work in case there's ever a fire or a danger to people so that the people that work at those businesses stay at those businesses day to day are safe.
Now you mentioned the camp being a conflict in your schedule. This camp is very special to you. Why does it hold such an important piece in your life?
So the conflict for the convention was a fundraiser for a camp that I go to, and the camp that I go to is actually starting next Saturday. So I'm going to be a bit gone from the SFL for a week. I won't have much cell phone service. We'll get in my progression for the weekend. That's about it. But what it is it's a camp in Wisconsin for burn injured children ages 7 to 17 who have sustained burn injuries, either from fire or water, chemical, anything like that.
And I didn't know before starting this interview. That's why we do all interviews. Well, not live, but just right off the bat because you can learn so much about people that you do also work in fire safety and your um, willingness to kind of share your story with everybody here tonight is certainly powerful and relates back to all of that. Marcus, you want to just kind of give the SFL community and SFL Nation just an insight on what you've been able to overcome?
Sure. So the reason that I'm involved in this burn camp and why I think working in this fire protection field is so important for me personally is because I was in a house fire when I was 6 weeks old. To tell this story very quickly, I lived with my biological parents at the time, who were 25 years old. They were 21 years old and already had 5 kids, so they were having kids just about as quickly as they could. And the kids were ages 4, 3, 2, 1, and I was 6 weeks old. And they lived in a mobile home. All of us did, and they decided to leave all 5 of us home alone unsupervised. And my 4-year-old brother decided to play with a lighter that he had found. He lit some curtains on fire, and the curtains ended up falling on me when I was in my infant seat, lit the whole mobile home on fire. My biological siblings all got out and left me in that burning mobile home, and I got med flighted to UW Hospital in Madison, Wisconsin, and ended up sustaining 33% third-degree burns on my face, my hands, my chest, and over the last 26 years have had 90 reconstructive surgeries to fix damage and make my life the best it can be.
And you mentioned to me before we recorded this interview that it was part of the process. It's healthy to live within yourself, to own who you are as an individual and own that story as part of your life. Why feel comfortable? Why do you feel comfortable sharing with the SFL community this story about your life when you don't have to?
One of the things I always used the internet when I was younger for was kind of to escape, because when I walk down the street, I can't, stop people from seeing that I'm burned my face. There's no way around it. I get stared at everywhere I go. Kids, people have been making rude comments my entire life. When I was in grade school, I drank out of a water fountain in fourth grade. And one of the kids behind me said, "I'm not drinking out of that water fountain after that monster did." People just, stare at me. Kids have asked why I wear a mask when I actually don't. People just come up and ask why I look like this. My Lyft driver about a month ago randomly asked me for no reason, "Have you always looked like that?" Which is kind of an odd way to start a conversation with a passenger in a Lyft car, I guess. And the reason that I feel want to feel so comfortable online is because you don't want to have to use the internet as a place to escape. You want to be able to be comfortable who you are and be able to show that online because you don't want to have an excuse to hide when you don't need one. You just want to be comfortable in yourself. And if you give yourself that place to hide in those places to make excuses, you're really not going to be comfortable with yourself or make any progress in the comfortability of the people around you. And I made the decision to tell the Simulation Football League about more about me and my story in this situation because everybody here is great. Everybody is like a family, and I plan to go to those conventions and meet everybody. And it's just one of those things where I felt the need for people, and I wanted people to really start to see the person I really was and not just whatever I type into the chat every day.
So who are you, right, as an individual? Everybody has hobbies. Everybody has, likes and fears and all sorts of stuff. Me, I'm not particularly a bug person. Bugs are not my thing, and football is my thing. So, who are you, Marcus?
So football is definitely my thing as well. Who I am is a person that likes to help, likes to give back. I learned a long time ago by going to this summer camp for burn injured children. I went for 11 years as a camper and have been going for the last 8 years as a counselor to give back. I realized how important it is to get help from people, but also to give help to other people. One of the things that I do besides work is I also travel the country as a public speaker, a motivational speaker, tell my story so that, maybe if I tell people what I've been through and what it's like to overcome these obstacles, maybe it'll help them in their day-to-day life as well. But I love football. I love video games. I love going to see movies, TV shows, just about every normal day thing. But I have an unhealthy obsession with football. I follow two professional football teams, two college teams, a Canadian football team, now an SFL team. Well, 21 SFL teams. So I'm just that person that when I'm not working, I like to be playing a game or watching football or talking to people, hanging out with people, and that's just kind of who I am.
When uh, when you're on the field with Atlanta, um, playing quarterback, you're only 3 games into your rookie season. How um, how is it? Has it been everything what you expected it to be? And what kind of is on your bucket list here? Because I'm sure you want to make the playoffs. I'm sure you want to be, a champion one day. But what are you trying to do for Atlanta?
So being on the field is way more than I could ever expected. It's one thing to watch a game and have no place in it, but you also get to know these teammates. You get to spend time knowing these people. So it's like you're on the field with your family, and you're defending. It's like you're defending your family every time you play, and you don't want to be making those mistakes. So it's you're so invested in the person that you have on the field, and as for the future, I'd love to be able to make it to the playoffs with Atlanta. I know that they've changed things up from the quarterback they had last year. So whenever you put in a new quarterback, somebody who's such a central role in the team, it's always a little bit of a growing situation where you're getting used to that. I'd love to make it to the Pro Bowl someday. However, only 4 quarterbacks can make it, and there's a lot of talented quarterbacks in this league. So that's an aspiration for the future. I definitely don't expect to make it this year, but the goal is to keep progressing the player year after year, get better and better. And I would love to take Atlanta and win a championship as well.
How do you feel about people making mistakes in life? Is it easy to forgive them?
Uh, I think so. It depends. I think
What
forgiveness
what
is important.
what about somebody that thought he was recording but was actually streaming onto our Twitch network?
Oh, cool.
This
Sorry.
Hi everybody.
Sweet.
Yeah, they get the sneak peek because it's just a black screen and me and you talking. But yeah, totally honest mistake. It'll make the interview funny for later when everybody sees everything on Monday
If
night
there are
after the
people
game.
watching me right now.
But but anyway, but seriously though, in life, how do you move on from that stuff? People, it's not the same, and I'm not saying that it is the same, but over and over and over again, people have said that the SFL is just a silly thing in life. It just doesn't it's just silly to watch the computer play games, and it's just kind of a waste of time. So I've had to kind of deal with that rejection, not certainly in the way that you've dealt with it, but that's kind of I have to remember that people just simply don't understand and to not hold it against them. Do you feel the same way, or is it a different process for you?
Um, everybody in the world is into different things. Everybody has, their own politics, their own this, their own that. There are just certain people in the world you're not going to be able to win over no matter what you do. And you just find your target, find your audience, and focus in on them. When it comes to the SFL and it's, watching the computer play the computer, that's something I've been doing in Madden for years before I even found the Simulation Football League. I spent most of last year working on a franchise in Madden 18, just watching the computer and going into the off season, making all the coaching decisions, signing players, drafting players, trading players, and then watching that play out the next year because I felt like when I played Madden, it's too easy just to take a team to the Super Bowl and you can do that over and over and it's boring. But when you take most of your control out and you try to make it so that where the decisions are the important part, that's where it gets interesting because you get something different every time you turn it on, and that's what you get with the simulation football league as well. So it's definitely a great thing, and I know you consider it to be a controllerless esport, to be able to open it up to people who probably can't play esports, are not good enough. I'm not good enough to play esports. If you ever see me play Rocket League, you'll know why I don't play Rocket League. So um, you know I know Matt Wilson said the greatest thing about the league is that he couldn't play football, and that allows him to kind of live that experience. And it's the same thing for me. When I was in that house fire when I was a child, the fire ended up going through, burning the front of my skull, going through my skull, and actually damaging the frontal lobes of my brain. So parts of the front of my skull are missing. So I'm not allowed to play contact sports. I'm not allowed to play football as much as I loved it. I was on the sideline in seventh grade. I got to, help out and basically um, be on the sidelines for all our football games. We lost every single one of them, but it was the greatest time of my life being on the sideline because I couldn't be on the field. And that's what I love about the Simulation Football League is I get that opportunity to be on the field.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's it's not necessarily similar to Matt Wilson's story, although it has some similarities, obviously. But it's similar in the sense that when you were drafted, when you were playing quarterback, before you even spoke with any owners, nobody nobody treated you or thought of you as any different. And I think that by introducing everyone, regardless of their differences, into the league on that level playing field of, hey, I'm a username that is excited, enthusiastic about joining the league, I think that it helps us when people are ready to share their stories of courage and triumph. It helps everybody be able to say, okay, well, that's amazing that Marcus went through that, but I don't see Marcus as any different. I still see Marcus, as the guy that joined the league, from the very beginning, and we're always going to treat him the same. And that's what I would hope out of the SFL community, and I think that we get that on a regular basis. Is Do you find that's helped this, through the whole thing?
Absolutely, and I don't want people to treat me any different. I don't tell this story for any sympathy or to be treated different. I think it's more important to me that people get to learn who I am, and I'm sure I'll be treated the same way. And it's been great, being treated no different than anybody else because, you know, ultimately I've gone through a few different things, but I am no different than anybody else. I'm just your average 26-year-old who likes football, likes video games, etc. And I know a lot of people probably have gone through a lot of different things in their life, and I hope people will feel comfortable knowing that if they decide they want to share it with us or people, they can do that and still feel like people aren't going to treat them different. And it's a great opportunity to be here and know how much of a family environment it is, and know how amazing all the people is that work in the league, that work on the teams and play in the league. I don't think I've met a single player, owner, coach, league staff, that wouldn't feel comfortable telling this story to face. And I think that speaks volumes for every single person here.
I think a lot of people might want to know, and it's okay if you don't want to steer down this path, but um, have you do you talk either regularly or have you with your siblings, particularly the one that, he was just 4. He didn't know what he was doing. Have you had
So,
those
sure.
conversations?
I have talked to them. It's kind of a complex situation.
Sure.
My biological parents were not the best of parents, as you could probably tell by the story that I told. One of the other things was when I was in the hospital, after my burn injuries, they found out that I had healing skull and rib fractures as a 6-week-old infant, which means I, went through some abuse, and I'm sure the rest of them did too. Growing up, my adoptive parents kind of wanted me to stay separate from all of that and kind of be able to make my own decision when I was older. And I ended up doing a news interview for one of the events that I was doing a fundraiser around here, and somebody messaged me the next day on Facebook saying that she was my biological sister, and I confirmed some information, and it turns out it was true. And over the next couple days, I ended up getting about every other family member that existed. Probably had about 10 people messaging me over the next week.
Wow.
So I kind of did get to know them a little bit, but again, it was tough. My biological brothers and sisters grew up in a very poor environment. My biological dad was in jail for a while. All my biological siblings ended up, well, not, well, my biological brothers anyway, all ended up with criminal records before they were 18. So it's kind of that thing where it's like, it would be nice to know them, but they kind of viewed me as this family member that they lost. I was taken away from them when they were little, but I grew up with a different family, kind of not really knowing who they were. So I feel different about it. They don't exactly feel like my family just because I didn't grow up with them. And, as well as they try to do in their life, it, to me personally, um, you know, it's difficult because I really don't know what kind of people they are and the environment that they grew up in, and I'm worried about inviting that into my life. So I just kind of keep my distance. I don't know. It's a tough situation.
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, sometimes uh, when things, when you feel like you've lost something, sometimes you really do gain something. You gained. Would you say that you gained what turned out to be maybe a more fruitful and a life full of more opportunity just by what happened? Sometimes tragedy can bear beauty, if that makes sense.
Out of all of my biological siblings, and there were five of them, or well, four of them at the time, plus me, and there was another two born after I was taken away. Only one of them graduated high school. So they obviously didn't have the greatest home environment or the greatest opportunity to, do well in life. And certainly I'd be in that same situation. I don't know if I would have graduated, um, high school. All my biological brothers had criminal records. I probably would have too at that point. You never know. But, absolutely, I don't think that's the path that I would want my life to be on. And I've gone through so much over the last 26 years. But, I'm graduated high school. I've gone on to college, have a full-time job. I think every single thing that I've gone through put me in a better place to succeed in life. I wouldn't trade it.
Um, Many people, this is through the Bits Give Back program where we're really trying to get to know more about our SFL nation, and this is an interview with Marcus Dunhill, quarterback of the Atlanta Swarm, drafted 10th um, in the most recent SFL draft. He is next in action, I believe. Saturday, you guys are at
Sunday.
Dallas or Sunday?
Sunday at 5 p.m. at Dallas. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So Atlanta's trying to break off a two-game skid here, but we're going to be hearing a lot about SFL Nation in the coming weeks, and hopefully no one's gone through anything near that you've gone through, Marcus. But I'm sure that you're an inspiration to a lot of people that just so happen to be listening to this interview tonight instead of in 5 days when it actually was supposed to air. Um, but I'm sure that your story can uplift a lot of people and put a lot of things in perspective. And you do some motivational speaking as well, don't you?
Yep, I've traveled. I speak at fundraisers for other burn camps. I've gone to speak to other burn survivors at burn camps, at some conferences, as well as big some other events all across the country. I've gone to Florida, I've gone to Wisconsin, where I am, Illinois, Oklahoma, California, Washington, D.C. I'm a part of Common Voices, which is a fire sprinkler advocacy group that travels around the country. And most recently, we went to DC to work on some lobbying for helping support the fire sprinkler incentives that got passed on the most recent government tax bill. But anyway, I do every little bit that I can to help burn survivors and the fire sprinkler industry, but also just any people that could benefit from hearing my story. I speak to local service clubs in Wisconsin, like Kiwanis Club. A couple months ago, I spoke at their inspirational breakfast. Anywhere that I can share what I've gone through just in the hopes that somebody can take something away that can improve their life, then it's worth it. What's the point of going through everything that I've gone through if I can't share it to try to help other people? Otherwise, it's just wasted experience if I don't try to do something with it.
Well, I certainly hope that the league is at some point in a good enough a financial position for us to give back to children with disabilities, children with burn victims, and lots of different things that affect our community and the people we so care about in our community. And I hope one day that I'm in a position to where I'm able to kind of join those efforts and um, join in those just advocacies for people in need, that people that just need a little care and a little love in their life. So Marcus, is there to tie a bow on this? Is there anything else that you'd like the SFL community to kind of know about you, maybe on the lighter side, or just about you as an individual? Because I mean, I think that cheering for you in Atlanta is going to be a lot easier for some people, even their rivals. I'm sure will find it a little bit easier
Sure.
to cheer for the Swarm after this interview.
Gosh, lighthearted about me. I don't really know on the spot. The only thing that comes to mind is just, the great feelings that I have for all the people in the league, everything that you do, everything the league staff does, everything all the players do to make this league possible. I've only been a part of this league for 3 months, and it feels like I've been here for years. And it's honestly the greatest part. Every day I get, the best part of my day is coming to talk to the people in the league and game day. So I'm so fortunate for every single person that makes this league possible. And that's where my gratitude is right now, is just being so fortunate. I just happened to stumble upon this on Reddit, and it's going to change my life. In ways you won't even imagine, just being a part of this league. And I'm so fortunate that I just happened to stumble upon it. And I think we have such an amazing league here. I know it was rough beginnings when you started out with no user players, and slowly the players started coming in to the point where with four rosters, we have about 252 players. So it's an amazing amount of people that makes this league happen, and I'm so glad to be a part of it.
Well, for the first time Monday, everyone will get to hear this live. That's a joke, since I botched that. But I'm sure there are many other people who are not here tonight that will be looking forward to hearing this interview, um, especially after people, I'm sure, take to Discord to let everybody know that they really should tune in Monday night on Fan Night to listen. And Andy Hamilton's in the chat right now, and thankful that the Reddit was his program that he put together, Marcus. So Andy was the reason why, and it's so funny because he had an opportunity to select you ninth,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he's the reason why you're here because he put together the Reddit posts and all that stuff. So it's just it's very interesting. We look forward to maybe the first time Atlanta gets to play Vancouver or Mexico City or whenever down the road. Those are going to be some fun times, and I can't wait for the next convention, and I can't wait to meet more people that just didn't get a chance to attend this last one. People like you, Marcus, you certainly helped me keep this thing going, despite its hardships, and your inspiration to me and hopefully everyone that gets involved with the SFL, and will continue to do so. So thanks so much for sitting down with me in this interview tonight, Marcus. We all greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And if you're interested in sharing your story or just getting to a chance to let the SFL learn a little bit more about you, you can participate through the Bits Give Back program, and you can hear these interviews Monday nights after fan night on twitch.tv. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we will talk to you next time.